No one mourns the wicked. Good news. No one mourns the wicked. Good news. No one mourns the wicked. Boom. Wicked. Boom. Wicked. But guys, when she's singing, no one mourns the wicked. She's literally talking about herself. So she's singing to the people of Munchkinland, and the people of Munchkinland think that she's singing about Elphaba. But really, Gawinda is the wicked witch. Because she's singing no one mourns the wicked, they die alone. That's because Gawinda dies alone because she wasn't brave. That's how I feel when I discover like the most basic metaphor or literary device in like any book or movie I'm watching. I'm like, it's a metaphor. Oh my god. Or like, oh my gosh, when Coriolanus threw away the picture of his family, he was throwing away the innocent, nice part of him. Like now, he's just like evil. That's how I felt. Which brings me to the Hunger Games series franchise. I just finished last night, hot off the presses, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, okay? And I am going to get into my thoughts and opinions on the series. Now, I know a book came out, last week about Haymitch. I'm getting there. I only learned to read this past year. And we're going to get into my reading. That's why we're in front of the library, because I'm a creative genius. And I was like, if I'm going to talk about books, I better do it in front of the library. So I'm going to talk about me getting into reading. I'm going to talk about the Hunger Games, and I'm going to get into each book individually. But yeah, so I have never really been a reader, and I'm now in my reading era. I won't shut up about it. Because, damn, these bitches are right. These bitches are right. The book is better than the movie. Reading is a fun pastime. So I'm not going everywhere reading, but I did bring my book to work last night and read on my break. Does that make me a nerd? Guys, does that make me a nerd? Am I a nerd now? Maybe. But I have gotten into reading. It's crazy, though, because my entire 22-year life, I'm not even kidding, I think I've read maybe 5 books, period. I think I've read The Little Prince was up there in terms of books I liked. The Death Mile. No. It's not The Walking Dead. I think it's The Death Walk or something, whatever. Stephen King. I got really into when I was a kid. There was this series of dragon books. Got really into those. Those were kind of my guilty pleasure. I was embarrassed to tell people I was reading a dragon book, but I got really into those. And a lot of people my age are raving or were raving about Percy Jackson. I was on another Rick Riordan kick where I was reading the Egyptian version of Percy Jackson. I think it was called Magnum Chase. Ooh, it can't be Magnum Chase. That's weird. Max Chase? Whatever. Something Chase. And I was reading the Egyptian version of all those Percy Jackson books. But total, I think I've read like maybe 8 books in my entire life. In the past 8 months, I have read, let's see, I've read 6 books. So I'm at 100% of the books I've read in my lifetime in the past year. So that's exciting for me. Really, I've never been that into reading because firstly, I have problems with authority where my parents were always trying to get me to read. And I was like, oh, you want me to read? I'm now never going to read a day in my life. That, and also I just never wanted to read for school. But deeper down, it's because my reading comprehension sucks. I cannot retain information I read. I'm just not built like that. So when I would have to read for school or, to be tested on it, I just couldn't remember a word of what I read. So now, the key point is that I graduated. Skoducks. Skoducks. And I never have to read for education again. So I think that's what kind of released the shackles of me reading, because now I can just read for fun. And don't know why it took me this long to discover that, but now I have officially entered the upper echelon of society of readers. I used to be just like you, a simple peasant peon, on Instagram, a non-reader, and now I can say from the plush couch of this library that I am officially a part of the elite, um, and I read. So now, is it ironic that I am reading what 12-year-olds were reading? Yes, but that's just because I'm getting into it. I have catching up to do. I haven't read. I've missed out on like all the literature of our generation. So I'm now catching up. And let's just get into it because I have thoughts, opinions, especially as it pertains to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But for context for my experience with the Hunger Games franchise, I have watched the movies first for all of these stories and books. I watched the Hunger Games movies as they came out back in 2012 or something. And then I watched Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes when that came out a couple years ago. And between that gap, I did rewatch the Hunger Games a couple times. But so I read the books, and here are my thoughts on them. Beginning with The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This book, was going to set the tone for the whole series, and this was going to determine if I read the whole rest of the series. And I am pleased to say that I liked it. The only thing that caught me that I was like hesitant about or I didn't love was that this whole time since 2012 or whatever, I watched the movies, and when I would be talking with people, I'd be like, yeah, I've seen the movie, I haven't read the book. Every single person without fail was like, the book is so much darker than the movie. Wow, you'll love the book. The book is so much darker. So, unfortunately, after years of that, my expectation for the book got pretty high. And the only thing I was a little disappointed that it wasn't that much darker. There was a scene, and this is the scene that everyone talks about with the mutts in the arena. It was a little darker in here and a little more twisted, but like it wasn't that crazy. I was expecting a lot more kind of violence and stuff. And that being said, though, with the first 3 books of this series, I hadn't seen the movie as recently, so with a bit of effort, I was able to just put aside the movie plot and kind of just read it as if I was reading the story for the first time. So I enjoyed reading the story through the book, but I was hoping for it to be a little darker. I do think, guys, I'm not discovering anything new here about books, but I was like, wow, the book did a much better job showing the world between Katniss and Peeta, and I appreciated that versus the movie. For how much I enjoyed this book, and if not purely for introducing me to the rest of the franchise, I will give this 4 out of 5 Pita Pitas. Now, so each book I'm going to be ranking out of 5 Pita Pitas, and then I'm going to be breaking down 100% between movie and book. So if I loved the movie and I hated the book, the movie will get 100% and the book will get 0. Now, movie versus book for Hunger Games, I gave this an 80% book, 20% movie. If not purely because I was realizing a couple times during the book and during the movie that this is a PG-13 book. This is a young adult, a YA book. So that darkness, I was like hoping for, having read some Stephen King novels, wasn't there. But I still much preferred the book over the movie. because the movie just like leaned a little bit too much into the PG-13ness versus the book was a little more real. So I enjoyed that. But moving on to book number 2, Catching Fire. Now, this book, I loved this book. I think out of the 3, I think book 2 is my favorite. I think Catching Fire is my favorite. Now, I did that because I've been on Team PETA since day 1. Okay, y'all? I've been on Team PETA. Gail is a angry, prissy bitch, and PETA is just so much better for Katniss. So I've been Team PETA since day 1. So this book was a lot of service for me in terms of that relationship. Loved to see that. I also, now I haven't seen Catching Fire in a hot minute. I think the last time I watched the movie was like 2022, 2021, 3-4 years ago, where I had COVID and I binged the entire Hunger Games movie series. But so I don't remember that much of the book of the movie, but I feel like in the movie they skipped a lot of the tour stuff, which is like the first half of this book is like the political kind of performance of Katniss and PETA on the victory tour before the games and stuff. So I enjoyed that most. I enjoyed the building of the characters. I loved the games in the second one too. My only critique with this one that I wrote down was that the ending I thought was a bit rushed. I know that was the point because Katniss is in the arena and it just all happens so quickly. You know, they bomb the place and then she gets extracted. But even knowing that was the point with like it being chaotic and fast and supposed to leave you on a cliffhanger for book 3, I did not like how quickly it ended. I thought it lacked some finesse. The fuck am I talking about? Lacked finesse. You try writing a book. I can't even read. I also wrote because I needed to take notes. Because last night I finished Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so I wanted to gather my ideas for discussing the book series. And I wrote here, the games were super cool and I loved the arena, but the part I liked more about this book, the second book versus book 1 in terms of the arena and the games, was having known the characters for now a book and a half. A lot more happened to the characters and character development in the arena than in book 1, which I loved. I loved to see that kind of growth or that kind of better look into the inside world of Katniss individually, PETA individually. What was his name? Finnick. Overall, I give book 2 5 out of 5 PETA-PETAs. Good job, Catching Fire. Loved that book. Now, book versus movie. I am going to give book 2 a better ranking with a 85% book, 15% movie. Again, I need to rewatch the movie, and I'm going to get into the whole movie discussion here in a minute. It's as specifically with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But yeah, I give the book Catching Fire 5 out of 5 PETA-PETAs. PETA-PETAs. Good job, Catching Fire. Book 3, Mockingjay. Wow. Didn't like this book as much as I liked the other 2. I liked the plot of it. I just thought that the middle lulled heavily, that the middle of this book slowed down way too much. And being Team PETA, I was like, this is too much Gale. And I think this is the book out of the 3, even 4, including Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Mockingjay, out of all of them, was the one that gave me the ick the most and was the most pick-me out of the books. This was the most times I was reading and I was like, Katniss, shut up. Katniss, stop complaining. Katniss, what are you talking about? Why are you even debating this? So Mockingjay was the most pick-me out of the books. I enjoyed it because it stepped out of what I expected, what I had come to expect from the Hunger Games series with the whole arc of this happens and life is normal, and then the games happen and everything goes to shit, but then the games are over and they're fine. This kind of turned it on its head, and I enjoyed that change of pace. um but yeah, in the middle of the book I did feel like it lulled a bit, but I loved the second half or last quarter of the book. And again, I've been team PETA. And again, I don't care that I'm spoiling this. This book has been out for like, what, a decade now? Fucking read. Um, love that she ended up with PETA. So that was very validating. I was like, hell yes. PETA got the dub at the end. It just took a little, mending there when he got crazy. One thing that I did question, and maybe it's just been a while since I read the book or seen the movie, but she just got off without a hitch for killing the new president of Pan Am. Like, she straight up killed her, and then was just like, yeah, you can go live in District 12 with PETA and start a family and be chill. We're fine with that. So maybe I just forgot a major plot point, but it seems like she got off a little easy and it just ended. Um, Overall, I give Mockingjay 4 out of 5 Pita Pitas. Now, movie to book, again, I don't remember neither that well right now, but I do. The book is more fresh than the movie. I give this one 75% book and 25% movie. As far as I remember the movie, the book felt long, so that's why the book is getting a bit of a lower ranking. Now, let me get into Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, okay, y'all? I just finished this last night. She is a hefty book. And again, I am still a new reader. This was a hefty book. And as you know, Coriolanus is the main character of this book, okay? Now, I kept forgetting that he would then go on to become President Snow. So you are meant to hate him. Like, he's this whole book is a villain origin story, and you're meant to not like him. But I kept forgetting that, and because he's the main character, you're like, naturally you're going to root for and care about the main character. So then you're rooting for it, and then you're like, oh wait, I forget he's evil, and crazy. So I enjoyed those kind of sprinklings of like narcissism, power hungry, whatever. What is crazy to me is, again, I watched the movie first. I watched it when it came out. And I remember leaving the theater, and for the rest of the time where I haven't seen the movie again, but like since it came out, I remember being like, that movie was a very good movie. I loved the movie. I thought it was really well done. I loved it. At the time, I wasn't a huge fan of Rachel Zegler because that was the first Snow White press tour thing. I was like, oh, she's annoying. But that movie changed my opinion. I was like, wow, Rachel Zegler is great. Tom Blythe, I think, is President Snow. He was cool. So I watched the movie, loved the movie. So going into the book, it was a little harder to forget about the movie, given I watched it so much more recently than the first 3 books. So I had a bit of a harder time setting aside what I already knew was coming in the plot. But from the 3 Hunger Games books and Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, this book is almost a completely different story than the movie. And I say that because I finished the book last night, and then minutes after I finished the book, I bought the movie and I watched the movie. And but they change a lot of plot points, and they keep like the main ones, obviously, for the story, but I feel like all the subsequent and more detailed plot points really add to why things are important in the story, and they just skip it entirely in the movie. And what I found especially interesting was, hold, now for a quick moment from our sponsors. So I was talking about the movie and the book. Right. what I found interesting was I'll show you on here. Like, I would say the Hunger Games itself takes up a solid like 3/4 of the book. Like, basically, the Hunger Games ends here, and then the rest of it is the whole rest of the story. In the movie, the Hunger Games is only like half of the movie. So they skipped a lot of I think they skipped a lot of details and a lot of plot stuff in the first half of the book. Like they skipped the entire plot point of Clemencia getting bit by the snake, Corio going to the hospital, like him visiting her. They skipped the entire like arc of I don't know, they skipped a lot. Um a huge thing they skipped a ginormous chunk of his time in District 12. Um like but like he spends a week before he sees Lucy Gray. That just like he sees Lucy Gray the next day in the movie. He meets the rest of the Covey, and then he finds Lucy Gray. That is just skipped and omitted. So they skipped a lot of stuff from the book. So before I finished the book, I was telling everyone, yeah, the movie's better than the book. The movie's better than the book. And then I finished the book, and then I watched the movie. Now, I skipped a couple of parts because I was like, snooze, don't care about Sejanus, he's annoying. But the movie did skip a lot of the plot points and stuff. So now, having rewatched the movie, which I need to do for these three, but since I just rewatched the movie after reading the book, I do think the book is significantly better than the movie, which is not new. Everyone's been fucking saying that forever. Books are better than the movies. It never comes out how you imagine them. They're fucking right. It's ridiculous. So this one I would give almost more like 90% book, 10% movie, because maybe it's just because I read it now, or maybe because when I watched the movie, I was going into it with zero expectation, but I remember thinking the movie was really good on first watch. And then on second watch, I was like, this movie is mid as fuck and is skipping. Like the games, a huge part of the games was that they didn't see what was happening in the tunnels. So that was like a huge part of the mystery of the games. But in the movie, that would be boring. So they made it so then the tunnels had cameras so they could see everything. And that the arena had microphones, which was not a part of the book. The arena and the book only had like 2 working cameras and you couldn't hear very well. So I don't know. It in a movie fashion, you have to remember movies are like, if you were to transform at least how I read a book into a movie, it would be like a 6-hour movie. You can't put out a 6-hour movie. So they need to cut stuff, and I'm aware of that. But I feel like they cut a little much. And to be honest, watching the movie, I don't understand how it is almost a 3-hour long runtime given so much was omitted. So overall, now I know there's a 5th fucking book, okay, about Haymitch. I'm going to take a break from the Hunger Games. I have now read 4 books back to back of the Hunger Games, and I'm a little out Hunger Gamed right now. I'm a bit full. I'm satiated of the Hunger Games. So next, I'm reading this book called How Do the Dead Dream? No. Is it How Do the Dead Dream? Hold on. Yes, it's How the Dead Dream. Um, it's about this guy who, honestly, the synopsis kind of was weird. It's this guy is like a real estate mogul, and he's like 25 and is like a millionaire, and he almost crashes on the highway, and his near-death experience changes his life, and now he hangs out with endangered animals at a zoo. Don't fully know what I'm getting into with that one, but I will talk about the other books I've read, and now that I'm in my reading era, so let me go grab them. This might not be new for y'all, but reading is crazy for me right now. I have a stack of books I read now. I don't think I have ever read this many books in my life. Like, look at that. That's a lot of words. And I read them. So, I don't know. I'm really excited about my reading era. I'm sure it will fade soon, but for the time being, I'm in my reading era. The first book I read that kind of kickstarted this reading era for me was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Now, this book came at a crazy time for me, let me tell you. I read this fresh out of graduation, and the book is basically about this girl who tries to Kermit herself, actually does Kermit herself, and in the space between life and death, she visits a library where every book is a different parallel version of her life, where the one decision impacts this, whatever. And it was great because I just graduated. My dad had basically one foot in the grave at the time. And so I was reading this book all about making the most of your life and about how it's so important to not do the woulda, shoulda, coulda game, because there are infinite versions of your life. So there's like infinite opportunity, whatever. Loved this book. Cried a couple times. And this kind of kickstarted my whole reading vibe. Now, I wouldn't say this is the most that this is the favorite book I've read. LOL. I wouldn't say this is the favorite book I've read, because this book right here, A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles, I think that's how you say his name. This is my favorite book of all time. Period. Full stop. I love this book. It's now a Paramount Plus series, but I don't think I'm going to watch it because I don't want to ruin the story for me. Although, who plays the Count? This famous guy plays the Count. Who plays him? Ewan McGregor. Duh. So, he's a really good actor, as we know. So he plays the main character in this book. So I'd be tempted to give it a try, but shows and movies are so much more than their lead star. And if the script is written as shit, then it's not going to be as good. What I loved about this book is how smart it was. The way Amor Towles writes about the inner world of these people is so smart and descriptive and beautiful. And in fact, there's a line I often come back to, and I always send it to like my friend and stuff, is, hold on. And I actually just shared it with my mom too, because she was sharing it with someone, but where is it? Here we go. So the context for this is the Count is, this book is about 1920s Russia, kind of the star of the Communist Party in Russia, and the fall of aristocratic society in Russia, yada yada. The Count, the main character of this book, is socialite aristocrat Alexander Rostov, and he gets arrested and had all of his house, his assets seized by the Communist Party, and he's essentially put in house arrest at a hotel in downtown. That's his sentence. He's not allowed to leave, yada yada. So he sets up shop in the attic of this hotel. He becomes a waiter. He meets friends and whatever, and XYZ. For the whole book taking place in one room, essentially, or one hotel, it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. It's amazing. Love. I already said I love how the way they did the inner world, but just the way it's described is very beautiful. And there's a passage I would like to read. So he just met this guy at the bar at the hotel, and they were hitting it off great. Said to old friends, "Some might wonder that the two men should consider themselves to be old friends, having only known each other for 4 years. But the tenure of friendships has never been governed by the passage of time. These two would have felt like old friends had they just met hours before. To some degree, this was because they were kindred spirits, finding ample evidence of common ground and cause for laughter in the midst of effortless conversation." Isn't that beautiful, y'all? Isn't that absolutely beautiful? So this is my favorite book of all time. So now I have read 6 books in the past 8 months. So I'm not exactly on track with my oh shit. Oh no. No. Oh my god, everything's falling apart. Why did I do that? I thought it was being cool. Fuck. So I'm not exactly, I had a goal when I started this reading era to do a book a month. Not exactly hitting that, but I'm happy with the progress I'm making in these books. So if y'all have any book recommendations, one of my favorite things is to take book recs from people and put it on my TBR. But here's what's next on my TBR. So again, I told you before about How the Dead Dream. That is next on my list. But I've been recommended by several people. The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. I've heard that's a devastating book, but also I've been recommended East of Eden. So I might read one of those too. But my TBR is a crazy long list, and the range is crazy. I have The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, The Divine Comedy, The Leviathan Wakes. Then I have Hunger Games. Oh my gosh, I can mark that off my TBR. Wow. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Oh my gosh, I can mark that off. The Elements of Visual Grammar. The Wee Novel by Yevgeny Zamatin, which Brittany Broski told me that the Wee Novel was the inspiration, almost word for word, for is it called 1989? What's that one famous book? Oh my god, I'm fucking idiot. 1989 is the Taylor Swift album. Famous book. 1984. Yeah, 1984, George Orwell. Oh my god. So I love the book 1989, especially when Taylor Swift says, all you had to do was stay. Is that from 1989? All you had to do was stay. Now you had to go and lock me out when I let you in. Stay. All you had to do was back. Now it's just too late. Yeah, could have been easy. All you had to do was stay. All you had to do was stay. All you had to do was stay. Stay, stay, stay. Let me remind you, this was what you wanted. Let me remind you, this was what you wanted. Yeah, all you had to do was stay. 1989. Now, in the next episode, we will be talking about the literary master genius that is Taylor Swift. I'm kidding. Um, yeah. So those are my thoughts on the Hunger Games. Let me know if you agree. I won't label them as hot takes because a lot of them are just the basic discovery of the joy that is reading. But I had a blast reading them. I am going to take a break before reading, what's it called? Sunrise on the Reaping. It's Haymitch's origin story. But I do need to read it before the movie came out because I'm determined to at least watch one effing Hunger Games movie having read the book. Not the other way around, which has been the last 4 books I've read. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. Much appreciated. I know this second episode has been long awaited and long coming, but I hope to do these with a little more frequency, but that's what I said last time, so no promises. Update on the job search, it's still going shit. In fact, I applied for this internship. Do you remember last episode where I was like, I made a video and I talked about it ad nauseum? They did, in fact, give me an automated response saying no, that I would not be moving forward with the application process. And that did make me lose a significant chunk of hope in terms of my future. So, back on the grind. I did apply for another position, graphic designer for the Cleveland Browns. Now, they did send me an email asking for more information, but now looking back, I do realize that was a scam. The email that I was sent from had nothing to do with Cleveland Browns, and I did give them some information. So, nothing too crazy, but I did give them, I did fall for a scam. So, can't catch a break. You know how it is. Yep. But I'll be here next week or whenever the fuck I record the next episode. Thanks for listening. Bye.